cats, what's happening? It is a beautiful day. I gotta get motivated here. I have to I have to keep a little discipline in my life. Let's talk about that word for a minute, discipline. It's kind of a weird word because it has two different meanings. I can discipline myself, to do to task myself to do things, or I can be disciplined, or I can, receive a punishment. So, just kind of a strange word, but I just talk about both ways right now. I discipline myself every day. I get up and I have to go through my morning chores. I don't always like to do it. I'm not always in the mood to do it, but I do it anyways. And aside from that, I have to have a plan for my day. I can't just lay around and do nothing. I have to stay active. I have to be productive, I mean, that says a lot for my well-being, to be productive. At the end of the day, to look back and say that I did something. Yesterday, I went over to my daughter's and helped her clean up her yard. She had the whole top of a large pine tree broke out and was just taking up half of her yard. So I took my chainsaw over there, cut that up, and I cleaned up her yard from the storm damage and just some other debris that was laying around. So that wore me out, but that took some discipline to stick to it and get the job done. Today I'm going to go visit my mom. And again, I have to put a little bit of discipline in this because sitting around in a nursing home for hours is not something that most people really enjoy doing. I mean, I love my mother very much, and I want to spend time with her. I don't know how long she has to be in this world yet, but when it's all said and done, I'd like to look back and say that, I don't have any regrets that I did spend time with her. And so, it takes some discipline for me to get up and go do that. But I will gladly do it. The buds are getting ready to pop here. Actually, this tree's got to go. It is an invasive pear tree, which I didn't know when I bought it. I mean, they sold these things at the nursery, and now the county is saying that these pears, and I got another one in the backyard too, that they're invasive trees and they got to go. So there's a certain time of the year that you cut them down. They're going to let me know, and I'll cut that down. The other type of discipline, though, like I said, is when you get punished. And I've had my share of disciplines in my life. It's a little bit windy out here. We'll go in here where it's a little more quiet. Yeah, I've had my share of disciplines in my life. My dad, was a real strict religious Christian man, and so, he was quick to dole out punishment if we failed to toe the line. One of the things I was disciplined for repeatedly was my school grades. I did real poor in school. I was never diagnosed, but I had attention deficit. I could sit in a class all day and never hear, barely a word. I couldn't tell you anything that the teacher said at the end of the day. So learning for me was very difficult, and I'd bring home a bad report card, and my dad would get the paddle out, and he would fire my rear end up and think that was going to make me smarter. And every time I got a report card, it was the same thing. I'd get punished for it. I'd get disciplined for it. Even in school, I got disciplined. I mean, the worst one. I was in a study hall, and a kid threw a paper airplane or something, and it it hit me, and I picked it up, and I didn't throw it, but the teacher looked up and saw me holding this paper airplane, and you and you, pointing to me, both of you guys, go down to the shop class and get your punishment. Well, the other kid was the school hoodlum. He was the one that would, the class bully, you know. So I went down, and I wasn't anything like that at all, so we were two opposites, and, you know, so we went down to the shop room, and the shop teacher was waiting for us, and he loved doling out punishment. He loved discipline. So he says, all right, boys, lean over the shop table there, which we did. Now, he hit the other guy first, and I mean, you could hear that paddle whistling through the wind, and when it hit that guy's rear end, man, you could hear that crack through the whole school. And I was looking over there, and I saw this kid grimace, and I mean, this was the school bully, the tough guy. He started crying. He had tears in his eyes, so I knew it was coming to me too. I just gritted my teeth, and man, I got that whack, and it was the worst whack I ever got in my life. It hurt so bad that when we were done, both of us limped out of there. It was hard to walk. You know, our rear ends were so sore. We got out in the hallway, and we kind of almost had like a bond there, you know, because it was like, holy cow, did that hurt. And so we limped back up to class, and the teacher thankfully didn't have us come back in the class. He said, just stand out in the hallway for the rest of the class. So he just stood up against the wall in the hallway, which was good because I don't think I could have sat anyways. So yeah, I received my discipline. I was always being disciplined for one thing or another. Even in my career at work, I was disciplined. I mean, you know, it was like 3 strikes and you're out. So first you would get a verbal warning. Second, you would get a letter that went in your permanent file. And then third, you would get time off without pay, which was usually like 3 days. If it was a really bad offense, it could be a week or 2 off without pay. But generally, you would just get like 3 days off if it was a repeated offense. So yeah, I couldn't even remember what for, but it was just stupid things the stupid mistakes that I made, or things that happened that put me in a position where I was brought into the office and given a verbal warning. Look at Mark, you don't want to do this again. This is next time you're going to get a letter. And then it would happen again, and I'd get a letter, and you got to sign here that you received your letter. It's a letter of discipline. Next time you're going to get time off without pay. Luckily, I didn't get time off without pay. Well, I take that back because when I did get a driving under the influence, it had nothing to do with work. It was on my own time. I got a DUI, and trust me, you don't want to do that ever. It's the worst thing ever. But not only did I get punished through the law, I had to spend 3 days in jail. I had thousands of dollars worth of fine. I lost my driver's license for 6 months, and it was just a terrible situation. But it affected my job too. They didn't want me to drive their vehicles because I didn't have a license at that time. My license was suspended, and they said, well, you can't drive. You don't have a license. And so they docked my pay for a week. And that's a lot of money. That really hurt. That really hurt. And they cut my wages down too. So that was another punishment, another discipline on me. So that was the worst that I ever had to deal with. And I sure hope that I would never have to go through that ever again. So yeah, I discipline myself every day, and I hope I never have to be disciplined ever again. At my age, I'd really have to step over the line to have that happen, but you never know. You're probably wondering what's going on with my Yamaha. I've been working on it, and I've been finding more and more things as I go along. Now, you see this little plastic gear right here. I had to buy that because I got to putting this back together, and I realized that this was missing. So I had, again, a real search online, and on eBay, I found this used part. They were nowhere to be found brand new, and it's kind of a little worm gear thing, and it fits on here and fits into this gear here. But after I got this, I realized it's supposed to be out here, and there's a spacer that goes in here. So both that worm gear and the spacer were missing. So I get back online and I found the spacer and I ordered the spacer. So now I'm waiting for the spacer. What next? Okay. The throttle cable is really weird too. I had ordered a throttle cable and I kind of screwed up because I didn't know what was going on. But the throttle cable has three pieces. It has this piece that goes to the throttle. It has this piece that goes to the auto oiler, and this piece actually goes to the carburetor, and it's all connected in the middle here, where this one cable operates both of these cables. Like I said, this one operates the auto lube and the other one operates the carburetor. Oh, this is the old carburetor. I just was looking at that. I got the new carburetor, and I actually put a throttle cable on it, but that's a single throttle cable. Now, here's the other thing. On the auto lube, I was not going to use the auto lube. I was just going to mix the gas because I got to looking at this and I thought, well, somebody's messed with it. I mean, look at this. Somebody crimped a piece of wire around the oil feed line, and it's crushed. So again, I had to order a new oil feed line for it. Yeah, I decided to put the auto lube back in service again, because what happens is if you don't use the auto lube and there's no oil going through that, the engine will still, it's still hooked up to the engine, so the pump will still run. And without any oil in it, you can burn that pump up, and then it can shred this plastic, and then you get all that plastic in your transmission and your gears, and it won't be a good thing. So there are ways to bypass the auto lube, but I'm not going to do that. It's easy enough to put it right back in service, and hopefully it works all right. I don't see why it wouldn't. But yeah, so again, waiting on some parts for that auto lube. Why it was disconnected, who disconnected it, I don't know. It's a mystery. I mean, why were those gears taken out of there and never replaced? Who was in this thing that did so much damage and didn't put it back together right? I have no idea. After I moved out of the house, I had this bike and I rode it. It was in street-worthy condition. It had turn signals and everything, and it was in good shape. But I had to pull it inside the apartment and park it in the kitchen every night. After I got married, we moved into some apartments, and I couldn't have the bike there. So it was stored in my dad's barn for many years until I built this house and was able to move it out here. And it just went from my dad's barn out into my shed, where it stayed out there. So for all the years that it was in my dad's barn, I don't know who got into it, but somebody did. And then, of course, my son got into it and he didn't break anything, but he damaged the shifter mechanism. So he got into it a little. He says he just took the case off, looked at it, and put it back together. So I don't know. I don't know who to blame, and I'm not looking to blame anybody, but it would just be nice to know who got in there and tore all that up. So that's where I am with that. Still piddling around on it little by little. Every time I start something, I get into more problems. I was going to work on the fender, and all the bolts that hold the tail light on are completely rusted out. I wanted to take that off of there, clean the chrome up, and repaint the fender. But I'm going to have to do some drilling out broken bolts and re-tap them, which isn't a problem. It's just more time consuming. I mean, I can spend hours on that back fender alone. So, keeps me busy. Discipline. I got to discipline myself to keep at it, little by little. Like I say, if I do one thing every day, eventually I'll get to the end where I can put it all together again. And I'm looking forward to that day. I just hope when that day comes and I hit that Kickstarter that it's going to fire right up. That's my big prayer right now. All right, cats. Well, thanks for joining me and listening to me this morning. I've got to pack up and head west, or east actually, about an hour drive to see my mother. And I'm going to stop at my daughter's because I go right past my daughter's house. She had one more little tree she wanted me to cut down. I mean, just a little sapling thing. And she has like a sawzall. And I said, well, good grief, it would take you hours to try to cut that with a sawzall. I can take my chainsaw and whip it down in like 1 minute and have it done. So that's what I'm going to do. Head over to my daughter's first. Spend about 5 minutes cutting down that tree for her, that sapling. And then I'm going to continue to head west, or I'd say east. I got my directions messed up. I'm going to head east and see my mom today. If you liked the video, hit me with the thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe and continue to watch my videos and join me on this ride. And until next time, cats, ride hard and die free.